Hey, everybody. Let's talk about the World Cup. Hey, we're almost here at the World Cup. Kicks off on Thursday down in Mexico City. And right now we're going to talk about Group G. That's Belgium's group. And I think that's going to be a pretty interesting one to watch. We'll get to that in just a second. I'm Bruce Marshall. As always, though, some housekeeping reminders right off the top. Don't forget, click that subscribe button on your screen there. Make sure you get all of our Wager Talk TV videos. Also, don't forget, with the World Cup beginning this week, it's time to get on board with our World Cup All Access Pack, and that is all of my picks all the way through the World Cup, the final July 19th at the Meadowlands. 104 matches in the World Cup this year, so a lot to choose from. Just $149. That's a great bargain for 5+ weeks worth of soccer picks for me in the World Cup. One note, though, that deal ends when the World Cup kicks off on June 11th. So get that deal right now. Pretty good bargain. All of my World Cup picks through the final, just $149. Okay, we promised you to talk about Group G, and let's talk about Group G right now. And I really like this group because I think it can go a few different ways, and a sleeper or two in here that I think might be worth watching. As you can see on the crawl at the bottom of the screen there, this is a group headlined by Belgium. They're the favorite at -275 to win the group. You've got Egypt and Mo Salah in there at +400. The second choice in the group, Iran. Third choice, +600. There's some more to talk about with Iran, not all soccer related. So some interesting things going on there. And New Zealand, the long shot in the group at +2,500, but even that could be kind of interesting. We'll talk about the Kiwis in just a second too. First of all, let's talk about Belgium here. And is this the year Belgium finally does something and breaks through? It would seem a little bit unlikely because this time Belgium is flying a little bit under the radar after much of the last decade being one of the favorites in all of these tournaments. But often disappointing. They did get as far as the third place finish in the World Cup 2018, but some recent tournaments, including the World Cup in Qatar 4 years ago and the recent Euros, a little bit disappointing for Belgium. Can they make the jump and make a mark here? Well, we talked about that golden generation for Belgium, and when they did get that third place in 2018 in Russia, they still had Vincent Kompany on the side and in the center of defense at the center back there, Eden Hazard. These were two giants of Belgian soccer, long since retired, though. There are still some remnants, though, from those highly regarded Belgian sides. Kevin De Bruyne is still around at midfield. He is now sort of winding his career down, but still effective in Napoli and Serie A after all those years at Manchester City. Thibaut Courtois in goal, Real Madrid. He wasn't there, and he had a little bit of a feud going on with the Federation in 2024 at the Euros, but since Rudy Garcia took over as a coach, he's back in the side. He's won on his day. He's still one of the top goalkeepers, not only in Europe, but also the world. Axel Witsel, midfielder, long time at Borussia Dortmund, now Girona in Spain. And Romelu Lukaku, injury-plagued year in Serie A. He didn't make many appearances at all, but he's one of the all-time leading scorers for Belgium. He's been called into the squad by Garcia. So there's four veterans there, all in their fourth World Cup, probably their last World Cup. So can these guys go out with a bang and with a hurrah? We will see. I do think, though, what I like here, it's sort of an interesting mix of veterans and youth, and they were able to move through the qualifiers pretty smoothly. But some of the new blood here is really exciting, and these guys are all making their mark in the Prem. Jeremy Doku, boy, if you watch Manchester City down the stretch this year, he was scoring some big goals and some worldies for Pep Guardiola, some fancy goals, very electric out there on the wing. He could give Belgium something. And by the way, I think pretty good price on becoming Belgium's top scorer in the World Cup at +700. We'll get to more of those recommendations in a second, but I've got big ideas here for Doku in the tournament. I think he could be somebody to watch. Leandro Trossard, midfield for Arsenal. We saw him score a very important goal for Arsenal, that late season win at West Ham. Thrilling game, 1-0. Very important for Arsenal as it went on to win the Prem. That was a big win and a big goal for Trossard. So he's there. And Aston Villa, a couple guys who really shine in the midfield for Unai Emery and the Europa Cup winners, Yuri Tielemans and Amadou Onana. listen, these are guys who all excelled in the Prem this year, so the level of competition isn't going to bother them. And I have a feeling if Belgium does something there, it's going to be some of these guys who step up, especially Doku. So he's one of my guys I would watch in the tournament. Defensively, they have not been quite the same since Kompany retired several years ago. They really haven't found a center back comparable to him. Of course, Kompany now is at Bayern Munich, where he is the manager. But they do have a couple of fullbacks who can bomb from the edges. De Kuyper from Brighton and Meunier from Lille in Liga 1. So they can do some things on the back line there, and those guys can bomb upfield from their fullback spots. They're kind of an interesting side. There's a clear path for Belgium to get into the quarterfinals, I think, if you take a look at the knockout phase. Now, if they win this group and the form chart holds like we think it will, and they come in first here, at the top of the knockout phase, they'd get one of the third-place teams. Could be from any of 4 groups, but Belgium would be favored in that matchup. At the round of 16, there's a very good chance they could run into the Group D winner. Now, that's the USA's group. USA, Turkey, Paraguay, Australia. That might be the weakest group in the tournament. Belgium would probably be favored there. And I can see a path to the quarterfinals for Belgium. Now, when they get there, probably running into Spain. Again, if the form chart holds up and Spain does what we expect, they'd probably be awaiting in the quarterfinals. And I think that's where it would probably end for Belgium. But along the way, you get some pretty good prices on Belgium. First of all, just getting into the quarterfinals and then exiting at the quarterfinals. As you can see on the screen, there are a couple of pretty good prices there for Belgium to get to the quarterfinals and then get eliminated there. Best bet, though, might be finishing 1-2 in the group on top of Egypt. 1 Belgium, 2 Egypt gets you a plus 162. And I mentioned that Doku as Belgium's leading scorer, plus 700, a bomber price there might be worth a look. Anyway, I think Belgium's going to be kind of interesting and a team to watch as the World Cup commences. Now, how about Egypt? Mo Salah finally getting his chance in a World Cup. He thought he was going to be there in 2018. Boy, that was bitter for him because in the Champions League final, just a couple of weeks before the World Cup started 8 years ago in Russia, against Real Madrid in the final. And boy, Sergio Ramos did a number on Salah. Ramos heard about it, death threats and all that, but what he did, it injured Salah. He sort of threw him down to the ground. Shoulder injury. Salah missed the World Cup. Very bitter. Egypt did not advance into the knockout phase. And then in 2022 in the qualifiers, right at the end, lost in the playoff to Senegal. Very bitter loss there. Finally, Egypt and Salah in particular get a chance again to make amends here in 2026. Now, you wonder about Salah if it's just maybe a little bit too late for him. Not that he's not still productive, but at the prime Mo Salah a few years ago, like it would have been in 2018 or even 2022 had they made it in 4 years ago in Qatar. However, a difficult year for him at Anfield. He's leaving Liverpool. And we're not sure where he's even going to be playing his club football next year. So maybe he's a little bit on the downside right now. But it was interesting in the qualifiers. And they did very well in the qualifiers. They didn't lose one. It was more Omar Marmoush from Manchester City, very effective for Pep Guardiola. The offense sort of ran through him and Trezeguet. They didn't seem to rely on Salah as much. That might be good for the side here. And as we mentioned, they rolled through the qualifiers. They did have a problem in AFCON, though. They didn't get past the round of 16. That's got them a bit worried in Cairo about where Egypt can go here. And they seem to be a little bit too conservative once they get a lead. And Hossam, the coach, under some criticism at home, they think he could be a little bit more aggressive. But he's got a couple of guys there who could make some things happen in Salah and Marmoush. I think they come in second in this group, and I think there's a good chance that they advance into the second round, into the round of 16. Because they'd get a second place team from Group D if the form chart holds, and that's what their round of 32 matchup could be. They could win that. They get to the round of 16. That's where I think it would end for Egypt. But you get some good prices there to make the round of 16 and then to get eliminated there. I also think Marmoush to be the leading scorer at plus 375. I think there's a little bit more value with him than Salah. So I think that's a pretty good bet. The best bet probably, though, with Egypt, like we mentioned with Belgium, 1-2 finish with Belgium on top, Egypt 2, plus 162. That's not a very bad price. We'll see what happens with Egypt and Mo Salah finally getting his chance on the big stage. Now, let's talk about Iran. Boy, a lot to talk about here. It's not all football related. I mean, it's not often you play a World Cup in a country that you've just been at war with in recent months. Probably a good idea for Iran to have its home base in Mexico for the tournament, but they do play. They're going to be playing some games north of the border of the United States. We'll see what sort of reception they get. It is worth noting that Iran could end up, and this is not that far-fetched, not that remote a possibility, could end up playing the USA in the second round if they both finish second in their groups. We'll see how that would go. Remember, there was a historic meeting back in 1998 with a lot of political ramifications as well. That Iran won 2-1. So keep an eye on that as well. Again, though, a little bit too conservative. And listen, they've had distractions, and maybe that's the way they've had to play. And obviously, the stuff that's been going on, not just players based at home, but players based elsewhere around the globe, a lot of distractions for them. The manager's a little bit Goldadoy, the manager, is being criticized a bit for being a little bit too conservative. Mehdi Taremi is a very electric, though, frontliner, and he scored a lot of goals for Olympiacos this year. In the past, he'd been very productive for Porto a few years ago. Flamed out a bit at Inter Milan last year, but he's a good target man for him, and I think that's probably the best bet for Iran, for Taremi to be their leading scorer. The price isn't that great. It's about minus 160, 163 or so, but he's very, very exciting. And he should probably be the guy. Again, this is one of these teams, if they do ever get ahead in the game, they're going to probably just park the bus. A lot of people wish they'd be a little bit more aggressive. That's just not the coach's style. But Taremi is a guy that I would watch. I do think there's a chance they qualify for the last 16, last 32, that is, at plus 150. Wouldn't go much further than that, but it's possible. Because they could probably get there ahead of New Zealand. And if you're third in this group and New Zealand loses all of its games, then that's a pretty good chance you get 3 out of this group, although I'm not sure that's assuredly going to happen. Maybe New Zealand's not that bad. They haven't won a World Cup match in the past, but here's a kicker for you. 2010, Spain's World Cup, the only team that was unbeaten in 2010 was New Zealand. They played to 3 draws in the first round. It didn't get them through to the knockout phase, but they didn't lose. And their qualifying group, I don't know how much you can glean from playing Tahiti and New Caledonia and sides like that. They scored 29 goals and only gave up 1 in their 6 qualifiers. They weren't tested. But last fall, they did go to Norway. Erling Haaland and company played Norway to 1-1. They beat Ivory Coast 1-0 last fall. So they've played against some dangerous sides, and they've held their own. Pretty good idea the good deal for them that Chris Wood, Nottingham Forest top striker, one of the leading scorers in the Prem last year. Now, he missed about 6 months this year with a knee injury, but he did come back late in the season and scored some goals for Vitor Pereira as Forest closed pretty fast this year. He's available again. He's the target man. I think the best bet for New Zealand is Wood to be their leading scorer at even money. That's a very good bet, I think. And I would watch that as well. Also, maybe they can cobble out a couple of draws here. I don't think that's beyond them at all, especially if those matches with Norway and Ivory Coast meant something. They've got a lot of players based around. There's some in the MLS, some over in England, a lot in the championship level, and of course Chris Wood playing for Forest. If they land on 2 points, that's a plus 900 payoff. Now that's kind of a bomber price there, but that might be a flyer I'd be willing to take a look at. Chris Wood, the leading scorer, though, at plus 100. That's the best deal for New Zealand. Okay, that's our look at Group G. We will see what happens. As always, don't forget, if you got any comments for me, hit the comment box there. Let me know what you're thinking. I'd love to hear from you, and we'll have more World Cup action as the tournament progresses. So until next time, that's a goodbye from me.